You know those moments when your body gives you a firm but polite warning like, "Hi, sorry to interrupt, but you're very much not okay." Well, that was me just a few weeks ago when I found out I had anemic retinopathy, not enough oxygen in my blood, and my eyes decided to protest visually, like blurred vision, floaters, the bloodshot eye thing, which was very cinematic. I mostly moved on from then, but practically speaking, I ditched physical books and ebooks in favor of audiobooks in recent weeks, except for We Do Not Part by Han Kang, which I was halfway through and was stubborn enough to finish as an ebook. Now, if you want the full discussion on that one, check out the live show over on Roz's channel, Scally Dandling, about the books. And if you're new here, I run a year-long read-along project called Reading the Globe, with contemporary, classic, and YA strands. And for the contemporary strand, we read one book every month. And I co host that with Roz, who led the conversation for We Do Not Part brilliantly just yesterday. We were joined by Angelia from Read and Reread, along with a fantastic crew of booktubers and subscribers, most of whom joined our Discord for ongoing chats. Now, our April pick is A Sunny Place for Shady People by Mariana Enriquez, a surreal, razor sharp collection of Argentine short stories, and we'll be discussing it all month on Discord. Nearly 90 members and counting, all there for the love of world literature. And the live show will be here on my channel in early May, so I'm really looking forward to that. It is body horror for some of those short stories, so definitely outside my comfort zone. But before we get into the books, a brief moment of weather-based joy. It's noon on the 6th of April as I film this, and in the UK, the weather is glorious. It is so lovely out there. I've already been out with Milo for a long walk, and I'll be heading out again after this with another audiobook lined up in my headphones. Which is actually why I've got this microphone back out, because there is so much wonderful noise coming from outside. Everyone is out and about. They're barbecuing. They're running up and down. The kids are anyway. There's been an ice cream truck. There is a whole range of noise, which if I wasn't using this mic, wouldn't get filtered out. And it's kind of a shame to filter it out, but we do want to hear about the books. So yeah, here we go. We'll be looking at 6 books, 5 of which were audiobooks, and ranging from grief-infused quiet fiction to a very pulpy Nazi spy thriller. So, starting off with 100 Flowers by Genki Kawamura and translated by Kathy Hirano. Now, this one crept up on me. Kawamura is probably best known for If Cats Disappeared from the World, which leans into magical realism. 100 Flowers is something entirely different. Realistic, quieter, more restrained, and yet more devastating. This one really snuck up on me. It's a novel about memory, parenthood, and the things that we try to forget. We've got a man who is caring for his mother who is slipping into dementia, while he's trying to figure out what kind of father he wants to be. Through fragmented scenes, conversations, domestic moments, and childhood flashbacks, we get this fragmented but clear portrait of a complicated man with a complicated past. His mother is an enigma, and this novel allows us to sort of find out a bit more, but the mystery continues to sit between them, delicately unresolved. And the emotional current that runs through this is really deep, but Kawamura resists that temptation to make it melodramatic. It just feels very true to life. He lets quiet moments do the heavy lifting, and the structure, the short chapters, fleeting memories, mirror the way that grief and memory work in real life. They're elusive, momentary, hard to hold on to, and not very fixed as much as we'd like them to be. Also, the afterword hits almost as hard as the book itself. So I think if you liked The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa, then this will resonate, especially poignant if you're caring for aging parents or becoming one. I think if you need narrative arcs or satisfying emotional resolutions, this one could feel a bit too subtle. Then we go on to a really quirky one. The Convenience Store by the Sea by Sonoko. Machida, translated by Bruno Navasky. Now, this book opened really questionably. I was like, what? For the first 30 pages, it reads like a fever dream parody of an anime, if you can imagine that. A seaside convenience store called Tenderness, managed by a man so absurdly attractive. He seems to emit pheromonal mind control. Women and men are swooning. A clerk starts drawing a manga about him. I almost bailed on this, but I didn't, and I'm glad because this book is a shapeshifter. What begins as a satire morphs into a quiet episodic novel about the people orbiting this strange little store. A man fumbling through early retirement, a teenager trapped in a performative role that he's trapped himself in, slowly realizing he might care about things he used to call cringe, like his parents. A tutor nursing abandoned dreams. Each chapter feels like a small emotional recalibration as people quietly untangle themselves from the stories they've been living or the narratives that they've allowed to confine themselves and restrict their lives. So it's tender, yes, so aptly named, but it's not saccharine. No grand epiphanies, just honest, imperfect attempts at being okay. I wish the Pharaoh manager element hadn't been so fully integrated at the start when you don't really have an idea of where the story is going. I wished we'd sort of like kept that more in the background for the beginning because I reckon it will put a lot of people off. It almost put me off. But in the end, if you like books like Before the Coffee Gets Cold, this could work for you as long as you don't mind the odd start, especially if you enjoy the character driven stories about personal reinvention. If tonal whiplash is a deal breaker, then clearly this one's not for you. The weirdness on page one doesn't feel earned, it just is a little bit like baffling. So I would say 4 out of 5 bowls of konbini ramen shared in unexpected fellowship. Did I give a rating on the first one? I don't know. But anyway, the Chibineko Kitchen is next. Yuta Takahashi, translated by Kat Anderson. Now, moving from instant noodles to something more culinary. This is a little bit ghostly. There's a grief that doesn't come in sobs, but in silence. You make too much tea, you set 2 bowls instead of one. The Chibineko Kitchen is about that kind of grief and what it might feel like to be granted that brief, magical second chance to say a proper goodbye to loved ones. So it's very poignant, but not overly sentimental. It's set in a quiet coastal town. The titular restaurant serves remembrance meals, and if you eat one, you might briefly see the person you've lost, not in a glowing way, but in like a ghostly way. They just sit there, you share a meal, a few words, and then they go. So the stories here interweave a sister racked with guilt, a boy haunted by regret, and a man nearing the end of a lifelong friendship. Also, a man who had lost his wife. It's all very relatable and anchored by Chibi, the resident kitten at the restaurant. Silent and wise and more familiar than a mascot. So Takahashi's prose has a gentle clarity that sneaks up on you. The emotion isn't loud. It sort of lingers, and then there's the food writing, which hums with this warmth, like a well-loved recipe that's passed down through grief and memory. And I would say this works really well for most people. If you don't like the usual repetitive structure of like loss, visit, recipe, closure, then this might not work for you. But if you are into the structure, which I am, I find it comforting. Call me sentimental, but this sort of Japanese short story or collection of short stories that have a theme or are bound together by a place, that works for me. Think the Kamogawa food detectives, but instead of it being realistic, really leaning into magical realism. Now, if you need dramatic stakes or unexpected turns, This is going to be way too soft. So 4.5 out of 5 steaming bowls of comfort with a whisper of ghostly wisdom from me. Well, not the ghostly wisdom, but yeah, the rating 4.5. The Key to Rebecca by Ken Follett. So I just decided to, try something different, a hard turn into a different genre with World War II Cairo, a Nazi spy, British intelligence, betrayal, sandstorms, Morse code. The Key to Rebecca is a war thriller, purely engineered and unapologetically pulpy. So Follett writes this really well. It's structured brilliantly. Every beat locks into place. It's fast paced, high stakes, very 1980s in its worldview, though. Moral binaries, they don't, it is black or white. Femme fatale, check. Sonia of the gyrating hips is not a triumph of character writing, so I didn't think the women were particularly done great. Still, if you're in the mood for espionage and brisk momentum, this delivers. And I'm not going to say much more. 3.5 out of 5 encrypted seductions. The Warden by Anthony Trollope. So, reading Trollope in 2024 feels strangely radical, and I was inspired to do this by Katie Lumsden, who loves Anthony Trollope. The Warden isn't flashy, it's not clicky, but it is quietly brilliant, a satire without being cruel. A clergyman receives a generous stipend for managing a charitable hospital when a reformer who's also dating his daughter accuses him of profiteering. A public scandal erupts. Think Victorian social media pylon, complete with editorial letters and family tension. Now, Trollope's magic lies in moral ambiguity. Everyone's doing what they think is right. And that's the trouble. The reformer genuinely wants change. The clergyman wants peace. The clergyman's son in law, the one married to the other daughter, is trying to safeguard the stipend for future generations. No villains, just people who care very imperfectly. So the brilliance lies in how much you come to care about something as niche as clergy stipends in the Victorian times. The stakes are small, but yet the tension simmers. I really enjoyed it. 4 out of 5 morally entangled clergymen. Next up, Brightly Shining by Ingveld Rishoy. Translated by Caroline Waite, and hopefully I've said the author's name correctly. A big thank you to Ali for gifting me this book. I had read the hard copy just before my eyesight blurred, and I'll say it now, the title is a big fat lie. It is not brightly shining, it is miserable. Think The Little Match Girl, but modern day Norway. So we got 10-year-old Ronja and her older sister, Melissa, living with their alcoholic father, barely scraping by when he loses his job selling Christmas trees, and the girls have to hold everything together. Now, Ronja's voice is both wistful and prematurely wise. Now, you might accept that as a child's voice or not. I did. The sibling relationship is a novel's flickering center, I'd say, fragile, tense, loving. The prose is spare, raw, and quietly devastating, and I really valued this book until sort of three-quarters of the way. A narrative turn near the end lost me. It's not about the twist, it's that it swerves into something so oddly out of character, or I felt that way. The emotional groundwork was so strong, and then the final shift just didn't land for me. So for me, it's a 3 out of 5 crushed tinsel dreams. That's it. That's what I read while giving my eyes a much needed break. As always, I'd love to know what you think in the comments. Have you read any of these? Do you disagree passionately with my views on any of them? Or is there something you think I need to add to my audiobook queue? I'd love to know. And before I sign off, I want to say a huge, heartfelt thank you to everyone who's been in my corner lately. I've mentioned that I'm between roles work wise, and the landscape has shifted more dramatically than I'd expected, with NHS England now being absorbed into the Department of Health and Social Care, and significant restructuring across integrated care boards, which sounds like gobbledygook to a lot of people. There's been a wave of mandatory redundancies. is the best way to say it. Healthcare project management, where I've spent over 20 years, has become even more competitive. And of course, it's not just healthcare. So a lot of us are feeling the same way. Everything feels like it's moving fast and not always in predictable directions, which is disorientating. And I guess we could try and look at it as liberating too. And still, it's also, anyway, disorientating, which I said before, but it is. So I want to say thank you sincerely to everyone who's encouraged me or um, offered freelance ideas, helped me brainstorm what this next phase might look like. One suggestion that came up again and again was creating a way for people to support this channel directly, and I finally done it. So the most popular recommendation on the chat was to set up Buy Me a Coffee, which I've done now. I've set up a Buy Me a Coffee page. So no pressure at all. It's just there if you enjoy Page Turner as a channel, this weekly episode, the reading projects, or the general bookish chaos I attempt to wrangle here, and want to throw a little support my way as I figure what comes next. So, now a quick question for you. Would you prefer Page Turner Weekly to be themed? This week definitely was eclectic, cozy Japanese fiction, Nazi spy fiction, one Victorian clergy fiasco, and one icy letdown. So it was a huge mix. Would you like future episodes to have a more coordinated theme like unexpected tearjerkers or books that gaslight you, books that linger longer than they should, but in a good way? Things like that, or, general, perhaps based on language, Argentine literature or South American more broadly? Or do you like this grab bag approach where it's more mood driven and it's a bit of everything? Also, coming up, I'm still co hosting Reading the Globe live shows with Roz and Jack. Next one's early May for the contemporary. And next week or the week after, I'll let you know for the young adult. And there'll be a few single book reviews too, especially for new releases, I think that deserve a spotlight. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for reading. And thank you for making this channel feel less like shouting into the void and more like a book club where someone's always putting the kettle on and supporting one another and occasionally spilling a little tea. So, yeah, happy reading, page turners, and wherever you are, happy spring. Yeah, unless it's winter. But anyway, happy spring. Take care. You know what I mean. Bye.